TikTok, it's time to rock. We've got a few ticks and a few talks on the show, Brad.
Yeah.
People saying that they're going to hang out and join us. So good to see. Good to see the Rock Professor got up early in the morning and decided to join us.
I know. Just thank you very much. You're very kind. It's I've got to work out when the clocks go forward in the UK. Because it's going to be soon. Soon I'm going to get a lion.
1st of April, I think around that time is when it goes, the time goes back for us. But we'll sort that out. But the most important thing is that we're on time, and we're going to blame the Rock Professor this week for us
being on time. You can't blame me for being on time. That doesn't work at all.
Okay, so we'll blame Brad and Andrew for being on time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's much more like it. Don't know why I have to take the flak for it, but anyway.
Someone's got to take it.
Good to see you, boys, and thanks for joining us as ever. And we're going to spend a bit of time talking about a great documentary film. Well, we don't know whether it's great. We're assuming it's great, but certainly the content of the film that we're going to be talking about with you folks is undeniably great, the person that it's focused on. But before we get into that, there's a couple of things, obviously, as ever, we like to do some shout outs too, obviously to Brad for picking last week's album, some good views on that, bro, and some good comments. Yes. Thank you for that. During the week, I woke up a couple of days ago to some sad news that Mike Vernon, one of the founding fathers of the British electric blues scene, Simon, and we're going to call him that, can't we? We can comfortably. Can we call him that?
Yeah,
I think that's what I wrote when I my post. That that he's really the founder of that British 70s blues rock sound. The Gibson into the Marshall. I know Eric's playing it, but he's recording it. And on that John Mayall's Blue Bracelet album, that is the album where that sound is first heard. And a generation of British guitarists take that on and make it their own. But, he's the architect of it, absolutely, how to record it and, how to get that sound out of it. So, he is the godfather of it, really.
Yeah.
So hats off to him, extraordinary. Be there to catch the fire as it lit, kind of thing.
Yeah, he understood, didn't he, Brad? The musicians, and I think that's one of the great things about a lot of the producers at that time. They understood that they were capturing something really, really important. He'd worked with Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton early on, Peter Green. He understood. He knew exactly, didn't he, that these guys were, quote unquote, lightning in a bottle. And it just wasn't a job. That's what I think. What do you think, Brad?
No, I agree, 100%. They it's almost like they knew what the assignment was. They knew they had to capture it. For all of us, all these years later, to be still, listening and taking it in and really absorbing everything that they did back then. I mean, we're still to this day talking about the same key albums, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's because they're key.
Well, that's it, and obviously a big part of all that, in creating what I call musical history.
And I think, Simon, one of the interesting things from our perspective here, since we've been doing this show, and I'm going to pump us up a little bit here, not just us, the three of us, but everybody here joining us here in the chat as well. We understand the significant role of the producers too, and we incorporate them a lot in our criticisms and our congratulations, haven't we? Because of their role, Simon.
Absolutely, yeah. That's one of the sort of sadnesses is that clearly we had connections into Mike, but we were never able to get him on the show, sadly, which would have been incredible.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen. And there we are. Now it never will. But so we should say Arvin says R.I.P. John Hammond Jr. as well.
Yeah,
Died this week. John Hammond, influential. I don't know if you ever played with him, Arvin? Do you do gigs with him or anything? It's always possible.
Yeah, 100%. And we've got some cool folks here in the chat. The Rock Professor's going to do a shout out to you soon. But Simon, there's another little shout out that you want to do that's significant for the type of music we listen to.
Well, indeed, other person who was this time birthday, well, not somebody dying, but it was David Gilmour's 80th birthday this week. So happy birthday, Mr. Gilmour.
Yeah, I think I'll be throwing some Pink Floyd on later on tonight. Don't worry.
Yeah, Brad, I'm glad.
Never a bad idea.
I'm glad you're going to do that, because a couple of days ago at work on the radio station that I listened to, they played a lot of Pink Floyd songs in celebration of his birthday, Simon and Brad. And it was interesting listening to him, because he was giving snips of interviews that he gave over the years. And he often looks back, and I thought of us too, because, it's something that we do a lot on this channel. We look back often, not only ourselves individually, but from the musician's perspective that we talk about a lot too. And he said, I look back now in my 20s and how angry I was, and, how fashionably cool it was, Simon, to be angry in your 20s back then.
It's always fashionable to be angry in your 20s. You see, Arvin did open for him. I knew it, that Arvin had opened for John Hammond Jr. And his illustrious gigging past.
It's amazing.
Arvin is a legend, ladies and gentlemen. Aren't we glad and fortunate to have him here with us? Yeah. We have a legend amongst us, Brad.
We certainly do. It's great to have you on board.
Arvin sent me his CD. It's really good. It's fantastic. It's like, not messing about. He sent me, very, very kindly sent me one of his CDs that he recorded properly. And it's really good, really good. Just him on acoustic guitar.
Beautiful.
I just want to do a shout out to Alan too. We missed you last week, Alan. Thank you for jumping on board. I know the Rock Professor's got a job to do, and that is to say hello to you fine folks, but there's nothing to stop Brad and I from pushing our noses in, Brad?
100%. No,
you're picking out the favourites. Now we're all in trouble.
Oh, no, we did miss Alan last week.
Yeah, I know. He's waving his arms about. We don't know what about. Anyway, Arvin, it's a pleasure. It's really good. I've been contemplating buying a new car. And one of the disasters about buying a new car is they don't have CD players in them.
No.
I've got an old car. It's got a CD player in it. It's like, it's I'm not looking forward to that. What am I going to do with all these? Because I play lots of.
You know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to go and buy an old boombox CD player and just throw that in the back seat.
Yeah.
Well, or I get a car with an aux lead. And then I plug a portable CD player in the aux lead. Never mind your Apple CarPlay nonsense. I still want a CD player. How can I play on my Bruce Springsteen CDs if I haven't got a CD player?
Well, keep us in touch. Keep us in touch and up to date with the dilemma that the Rock Professor has, folks. What a dilemma for these retired folks.
That is what you. That is the very definition, if you look at the dictionary, of first world problem.
Oh. Yeah, well done.
it is.
Well done.
It blooming is.
Simon, I think you should do a shout out because you've isolated me for picking favourites. So let's just quickly get myself out of the hole here.
Excellent. So Hugh Caldwell. Good morning, Hugh. Who's up in sunny Scotland, whereas I've used the Scottish word "drich" this morning already, so I'm feeling quite pleased with myself, unjustifiably smug for using the word "drich," which is a Scottish word for sort of dreary, drizzly day. Is where I am. So good morning to Hugh. Helene O'Hara. Good morning, Helene. I hope you're well. And Ellen. And Arvin, of course. And Zaboy Zach. I'm going with Zaboy. Apologies, I may have butchered that, but Zaboy is a new name that I don't recognise. So thanks for the comment and welcome to the chat. It's good to see you. Thanks for commenting, Helene. I think that's everybody who's made a comment. Thanks, guys, for making a comment. If anyone else makes a comment, I'll try and pick it up and give you a wave.
No problem.
But good morning, everyone.
Hugh's asking a question there, and I can't remember, guys. Have we ranked Couldn't Stand the Weather?
No,
we haven't. No, we've
we
done Soul, I think, and Instep, I think.
Correct.
And El Macombo, but that's off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's right.
I have got that one on my list of albums to rank this year.
I don't think we've ranked El Macombo. I think you might have talked about it as part of the show.
We have ranked it.
We did it with.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
From Dropkick Blues, the previous Instagram page that he had. Yeah.
Yeah. Hugh, you can join us for that show. We'll put you down. But no, we haven't.
Yeah.
Because we know that Hugh is a fanatical Stevie Ray Vaughan player and fan.
Yeah.
So, guys, we're talking about one of the greatest musicians ever in the world who came out with a documentary about a significant milestone in his band, in his career, I should say, Brad and Simon. And we've had the fortune to rank Band on the Run and the Greatest Hits album, I think a couple of years ago, in celebration of Paul McCartney's birthday. And it's the only Greatest Hits album we've ranked, and we sort of patted ourselves on the back, Simon, that we only did that for Paul McCartney. So that still stands on the channel. But yeah, it was an interesting documentary. So I'm going to open it up with Simon, and then Brad. Obviously, we're going to sort of have a bit of a general discussion on it, and let us know, folks, in the chat what you thought of it. But just before we get into a full round table conversation, Simon, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that I wasn't entirely certain I knew more about Paul McCartney at the end than I did at the beginning. I don't blame him for this. He seems very good at kind of disguising himself in a funny kind of way. I did feel. There's, it's beautifully shot. All those shots of Scotland and things like that are absolutely blazoned in my memory, because at that point I was going to Scotland too. We went to Scotland every year. We went to the Isle of Mull every year from when I was about 13 or 14, 71, 72. So for that period, we went to Scotland. So that the views out of the kitchen window, out of the kitchen door, of the green, verdant sunshine, green verdant hills, and the sheep and stuff, looking at you and things, with just those those images are emblazoned in my mind for my sort of childhood holidays, really, with my mum and dad, and quite a lot of the stuff that was in it, like them all sort of being in an old bus and kind of traveling around the country. I mean, we used to we used to have old Bedford vans, which Brad won't remember this because
I do remember Bedford vans.
with the sliding doors.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
with no seatbelts, my dad would build out the backs into seats and stuff, and we would go up the motorway 50 miles an hour with the doors open, air conditioning in the 1970s, and with a boat on the back on our way to Mull. And it just took me back to those days of the, no seatbelts in the back, lolling about. We had a cat that would come with us as well, and stuff, and famous things like you get past Glasgow and you get off the motorway and you're on a single track road that goes around Loch Fyne. And I can remember my dad famously saying once, "It's amazing, there's no traffic on this road. I can't understand it. We could that. They're all behind us, furious to break out 40 miles an hour behind it with this bloody Bedford van and the boat stuff." But so from that point of view, as a kind of portrait of the 70s, I thought it was lovely and had lots of, brought up lots of personal memories for me of those family holidays and how Britain was in the 1970s. At one point they showed a shot of a service station and stuff that looked like it was from the 50s and things. And you think to yourself, blimey, how we've come on since those days of 50s buildings and stuff every now and then. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it has lots of really cool tidbits in it and viewpoints and things. But as I say, I was left at the end without quite thinking that I knew any more about Paul McCartney at the end than I did at the beginning, really. What about you guys?
Brad?
Well, for me, it was, interesting to watch, and I found certain bits of it a little bit hard to watch, actually. But it was good to watch the beginning of McCartney, searching for a direction post Beatles and the struggles he had. Because I guess every musician, goes through those moments of, not being able to come up with song ideas, for example, or write music or be creative. And I call them creative lulls, even to the point where you don't want to touch an instrument. And I guess post the Beatles, I mean, it's what do you do coming from a band with that sort of chemistry between the members, especially having a songwriting partner like John Lennon, I guess, to bounce ideas off. He made a big point of that. That the certain parts of his early career and stuff like that, I found difficult to understand why he went in that direction, but then also understood that he went in that direction for his own development. He needed to distance himself from the Beatles, but my big thing was you're never going to distance yourself from the Beatles once you've been in the Beatles. And even when the Wings were at Madison Square Garden, they're still going on about, is there going to be a Beatles reunion? Is John going to come out? There was more emphasis on the fact he was ex-Beatle and his new band, the Wings, even though the Wings were having success at that point. I love the idea of a musician struggling to gain credibility, but it's hard to understand how McCartney would have to gain credibility because he already had that. So it's not like he was starting from ground zero, but they kind of made out like he was, which that's McCartney's direction or not, I'm not sure. I found that part of it a bit uncomfortable to watch at that point. But for the most part, I found it very entertaining. I knew a lot of what they were discussing about his career. Certain little bits here and there, obviously, I didn't know. Obviously, the Nigeria recording disaster with the band members quitting, the mugging, the studio limitations, the end, like Band on the Run becomes a major global success. The album reestablishes McCartney as a dominant songwriter. The acknowledgement of, say, Lennon, with coming up, being something that inspired him to get back to writing music. Obviously, the relationship between ex-Beatles, including John, during that period in the 70s, the Beatles break up. John broke up the Beatles, but Paul got blamed because he came out, saying the Beatles are over. And it was a very interesting thing to watch. It's obviously all from McCartney's point of view, which is we have to take it as gospel because it's coming from Paul McCartney. It's not coming from someone who's just researched it. It's actually Paul McCartney. I love the mix of, the archival footage, the photographs and everything like that, the interview commentary. But as much as McCartney tried not to be a leader in the band, he was the leader of the band, and there's no other way the other musicians could match up to his status, I guess, where he was situated in Wings. I guess the whole thing is based around that Band on the Run, where it gets to the success and it becomes one of the most successful albums of the 70s. It demonstrates for me, though, how McCartney he has that natural drive and ability after he realized that he was drinking a little bit too much and not really focused. He's obviously, his work ethic kicked in like he did when he was in the Beatles, and even through the Let It Be sessions when we watch Get Back, he's the driving force. He keeps the songs coming and the everything's ticking over. So he knows how to rebuild a band. He overcome the criticism. He evolved musically, post Beatles, and it reframes Wings as an underrated rock band in history, in my opinion. The turning point where Paul McCartney proves he could thrive without the Beatles, I guess, overcoming the adversities and everything through his determination and his songwriting strength. What do you think, Andrew?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you and Simon for your comments. Always appreciate your opinion. And obviously everybody else is in the chat. Hugh's got a great comment here saying, I still think Paul is the most important musician alive and have thought so for 30 years. Hugh, we're in the same boat here on the channel, and this is why we've devoted a bit of time here, to slot together to talk about that, because we agree. We agree with you. The guy is a legend. And so for my 5 cents worth, just before we chuck it into sort of a general conversation, there's a couple of key points that I thought were really, really important. I really like the fact, Simon and Brad, that these guys and girls are doing this stuff, curating their stuff, talking about aspects of their career now while they're still alive. Now, whether or not you can agree with everything that these artists are saying, the point is they're doing it. And Paul McCartney, was on record many times talking about his experiences with the Beatles, Brad and Simon. We've got the last anthology thing that we spoke about a couple of months ago here on the channel.
Yeah.
Many, many books. And now Paul is starting to focus on Wings, with a couple of books that came out recently, and obviously this documentary talking about and narrating it from his perspective. I agree with you, Brad. I didn't learn a lot, and I agree with the Rock Professor. I was disappointed as well with the documentary, because I don't think we got as much as we could have got. Not necessarily, guys, about Paul McCartney. I really appreciate the fact that they emphasised Linda's role in that band.
Yeah.
You know, Paul McCartney said right from the word go, you know, in that documentary, and we know it too. You know, if I started a band, will you join the band? You know, will you? And she said, yeah, of course. You know, because he didn't want to do anything without his wife. So that's cool. I dig that. And you know, so there's about 3 or 4 segments during the show where they talk about her perspective, which is really cool, and that's important because again, anybody who doesn't know that, she was a key figure in the band. I was a little bit disappointed with some of the biographies of the band members. I expected a little bit more of a conversation about Jimmy McCulloch, you know, because he was one of the key musicians in that band during that mid-1970s, the roadshow thing, which sort of appealed to a lot of young folks. Yes, Paul McCartney was the draw card, Brad, but Jimmy McCulloch, you know, the young guy with the blues background, and he certainly had it by playing with Simon, who was that Scottish blues band with the Scottish woman who was the lead singer, Hugh Caldwell, Stone the Crows?
Oh, Stone the Crows, yeah.
Yes. You know, so, you know, and he spoke a little bit about the guys, you know, and then he sort of said, you know, Jimmy did everything to excess or something like that. So I could have done more with a bit of a biography on the band members, but that's just me. It's okay. I'm sorry about that, but we are offering our thoughts here. And Brad and Simon, shoot me for this, but I don't give a shit what Sean Lennon. I don't give a shit what Sean Lennon has to say about Wings. What would Sean Lennon know? Other than obviously he's doing what we're doing, talking about a band, but really can't offer any insight into Wings. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah.
He's just doing the McCartney bit, isn't he? And we should say thanks to Helene, who's given us a $14.99 super sticker, Helene. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
That's really kind.
Thank you so much. All goes towards the channel, which is great. Thank you.
Helene.
Yeah, that's really nice of you, Elaine. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll pick up on a couple of points. The first thing I'd sort of forgotten is that McCartney's first 2 solo albums, so McCartney and then Ram, were both #1 US albums chart.
Correct.
They got to #1 in the US. So they were kind of homemade, or the first one was homemade, the second one not so much, but the first one was but it's still a huge record and sold.
Yeah,
you know, sold a lot of copies, even though it wasn't, you know, and also you could say that it was not quite, but you know, it's right up there in the vanguard of that kind of punk ethos of sort of home recording. You know, people had home studios before that, but it felt very kind of punky and sort of. You know, to be in Scotland just with a small room, just, you know, with a few instruments, and I can play them all, and I can make an album kind of thing. That felt kind of, you know, sort of the antithesis of what was happening then in terms of studios as they were getting bigger, more tracks, people going in for longer periods, writing in the studio and stuff, and that seemed to be a bit at odds with that. So, and the other thing, just to pick up Andrew, I thought Linda came out of it really well, actually. You know, I did, you know, and she's had, you know, at the time, I remember a lot, she had a lot of stick at the time for, you know, not being Rick Wakeman or something, or, you know, not being the world's whizziest keyboard player and not, you know, but what comes through very clearly is like, as you said, Andrew, that he says to her, you know, do you want to join the band? You know, now we've got 2 people in the band. Now we needed a couple more, and we're good. So I think that she comes out of it well, you know, and his decision that she should be in the band because, you know, she's his wife and they want to be together. and the only way that's going to happen on tour is if she comes and plays. So guess what? She's coming to play. You know, I sort of looking back on it now, I took my hat off to him for that decision. I thought that was a really good decision, and I thought it reflected. And she was like, "No, I'm not a keyboard
much
player."
Better musician than Yoko Ono ever was.
Well, yes, I did sort of write that in my notes. I did write, you know, John and Yoko and Paul and Linda.
John and Yoko,
no. But in terms of them wanting to spend all their time together, you know, and you know all that stuff for coming to the studio. But you know, so I took my hat off to her for, you know, being able to balance being in a band, bringing up children, being married to Paul McCartney.
Might get her in as a backup singer and a dancer. You know, might draw more people.
Thank you, Hugh, for the sub, bro, and also for the super chat. God bless you, brother. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind. Wow. It's quite thrown me off, that has. My cat sings better than Yoko Ono. Yeah, well,
100%, Helene. 100%.
Anyone's cat does, but I agree with you, Simon. You know, it was wonderful. I mean, look, Linda did cop a lot of flack, and that's one of the topics I wrote up here to discuss. So you've already touched on it, which is great. But I just thought, you know, you also got to remember these guys at this particular time in their lives, you know, were young. They were just into their 20s, into their 30s. They're looking to start families. They were looking to, you know, the Beatles were over and they were moving forward. And Paul wanted to spend as much time with Linda as possible, as did John with Yoko. You know, they wanted to spend time with their partners and create with them. And for better or for worse, you got to give them credit for that. Now, Linda was good for Paul because Paul obviously was on a bit of a spiral downwards, as he alludes to at the start. He started to drink a little bit too much scotch. You know, he mentions that at the start. He had one, and then it's turned into, oh, that was nice, I have another one, and he could have spiraled out more. So Linda was good for him. You know, as you know, in a relationship, you know, your partner's meant to pull you out and help push you to be the best version of yourself. So that was portrayed really nicely, I think, and respectfully. Unfairly, you know, the partners copped a bit of flack. I mean, you know, that's just the decision they made to bring their partners involved. Like Paul brought Linda in, and that's, you know, it is what it is. The history is she was part of Wings, and she was I guess for a better ways of putting it, she was a lot of inspiration behind Paul's writing.
100%
at the time. So you know, God bless her, and I mean, she did a lot for Paul, which was great. And I mean, once you think about it, they're still young gentlemen at this point. They're just starting their 30s, and you know, Paul was late 20s, early 30s when he started recording with Wings. You know,
just so we said, Paul is 27 when the Beatles break up in 1970.
Yeah, so 27. Put that in perspective. They're very young men still. So like that, you're talking about the breakup of a band.
Yeah.
You know, that was pretty much his life, and he had nothing else, no focus, no nothing, and obviously Linda probably helped pull him out of that little spiral that could potentially have been pretty brutal for him to get out of. You know, I agree with you, gentlemen, by the way, too. Like my analysis of the, you know, the documentary at the start there, Paul is still one of my all-time favorite musicians. I saw him 2 years ago perform.
Yeah.
Still, in my opinion, you know, I'll say it to this day. I think the Beatles, including John and Paul, will go down as in history as some of the greatest songwriters of all time. including George Harrison. I mean, my life, I've got Paul around me. Look, I've got Paul here.
Mm-hmm.
I've got Beatles show. I've got Paul up here somewhere. It's up here. Look, there he is. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Yeah. So, it's. I just think they could have probably done a little bit more, like you said, Andrew, a deeper dive into it. But you've also got to remember that they're catering for the masses, not necessarily musicians like you, Andrew, or myself, or Simon, or gurus that want to deep dive into it a little bit more. Would have liked to have found out a little bit more stuff that I didn't know. Would have been good.
Yeah,
But,
I think, and that's one of the reasons why there's some good books out there. And I just want to say a shout out to Gretch Zeppelin. Thank you to Gretch Zeppelin for your super chat, bro. I appreciate it. It all goes to help running here the channel, the subscription for StreamYards, and our YouTube monthly subscription. And like everything else around the world, it's just gone up again. Went up in March, so insurance policies, your rates, everything goes up around this time of the year. So, appreciate you guys helping us with the cost of running this channel. It means a lot. But I agree with you, Brad. I think one of the great things about Paul McCartney and that I like and admire especially is that when he broke up the Beatles.
Oh yes, he broke up the Beatles.
No, he didn't. When the Beatles, I was just being a shit stirrer there. When he split from the Beatles, what I like is he took his family up to the top part of Scotland to a farmhouse that had nothing. It's not that farmhouse that they had in 1970 isn't the farmhouse today. The farmhouse today is very, it's been remodeled and done up a few times. But you go and look at some of the film footage and the photo footages, and we're familiar with, it was basically a dirt floor cabin. He goes up there, and he could have, Brad and Simon, he could have gone to New York, Paris, he could have gone anywhere in the world after the Beatles and lived a life of Riley, but he chose to get back to an organic foundation. Earthy, that's it, bro. To reset.
Oh yeah, organic, yeah.
And that's reflected in his first album,
Yeah.
And look, I think the good thing about the film, though, the documentary, is for someone who's not too familiar with like the history of Paul post the Beatles, it's a good overview, I think. And there was one or two things that I thought were good that I hadn't heard of before, but the majority of it I've read or heard or whatever it may be through YouTube or whatever it may through the internet. A lot of it's been said and done many times over. But to hear from Paul's perspective, I love the one thing I've written down here is to mention when they go on about Paul is dead and his brother goes, when they go, when's the last time you saw Paul? And he goes, at his funeral.
Mate, I pissed myself when I watched that. It was funny.
There are some very good, some very funny moments in this, aren't there? I love the bit where he gets, clearly didn't, but I got sent some seeds which I grew, and he said to the report, really said, 5 of them came up illegal. I thought that was lovely. That's like really funny.
And Linda's standing there trying desperately not to laugh.
Yeah. It's just that's really. There are bits like that are really funny, and he's got a tremendous and he does it straight faced as well. I mean,
I've got a question for you guys, and you've just jolted my questioning Simon with that little comment about the I've got 5 seeds and they grew. Do you think that later in his career he's talking about how they're going to Japan and he didn't feel comfortable, he wasn't ready, He didn't feel like they were rehearsed well. Didn't feel like they were, you know, ready to go on that tour. Do you think that incident that he got arrested for over the, I don't know if I can say it on YouTube, for the incident for the substance that they were carrying,
Yeah.
do you think that may have been self-sabotage a little bit? Do you think he might have known that they were
Well,
going
you
to...
know, I thought that slightly as well. That there was a certain, it seemed to be a certain element of, oh look, there's this big bag of stuff in a suitcase, the last one. You know, I did slightly feel like that as well, Brad. As there could have been an element of self-sabotaging that. I absolutely felt that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought because there's a slightly different spin to that story. I've never heard it spun that way, about them not feeling ready to tour Japan. You know, Paul didn't feel ready, that the band was ready, and then they were going, and all of a sudden substance was put in a bag from, they were in New York, they had some good stuff and they took it. And yeah, I thought that might have been a bit of self-sabotage there, so that he didn't actually have to go through with the tour. That's how I felt it came across.
Well, no, I agree. It felt a bit like Dylan's motorcycle accident, you know. Oh, I fell off my motorbike. I'm fine, but don't tell anyone, and I'll pretend I'm very, very injured, and we can take 6 months off.
Yeah, I always thought that, Brad, and over the years, you know, because I've been a Paul McCartney fan, and I saw the quantity of the illegal substance that we're talking about. And I remember telling a lot of friends, you know, when it came up in a conversation, and a lot of people just thought maybe it was like a handful, you know, or a tinny, which is like a $20 tinny here, which is like enough for 4 joints or something like that, you know, a small amount. And no. It was like it was a half a pillow. A half a pillow of it. Yeah. We're talking about enough mull of Kintyre. We're talking about enough mull to last you years, Brad.
Years, Brad. Yes, you. Yes, Brad.
Why did you say it like that, Andrew?
I didn't mean it like that.
Yeah.
No,
Andrew, I know what musicians are like.
No, I'm probably one of the strangest musicians in Melbourne. Let's put it that way. I don't really dabble with anything, and that's not accusing other musicians of doing that, but I wouldn't travel to Japan with that much of anything.
No.
So you say.
He's lucky he didn't go to Thailand or the Philippines.
Well, I'm surprised
he wouldn't have got off.
Andrew, I'm surprised they let him off. Maybe he knew deep down inside, or he had insider information that they would hold him for 7 days and then let him off, because he could have got 7 years imprisonment.
Oh, and so thank you, bro, for mentioning that, folks. If you're not aware of it, and if you haven't seen the documentary, Paul McCartney spent 7 days in a Japanese prison. We're not talking about Mick Jagger and Keith Richards spending, you know, 1 night in jail or 2 nights.
Jailbirds. No, but didn't you like the sort of the image that portrayed it is Steve McQueen in you know, with the baseball glove and the baseball bouncing it off the wall. It's like I felt like a certain amount of mythologizing of man to some extent, but I think you're right that you know, it did feel like that, you know, he'd used that as some sort of as a creative way of getting out of the Japanese tour that he didn't feel prepared about.
Just him, John. Just him. So, because John's asking who. There's a couple of theories there. So one theory is early on that it was Linda's, because Linda was regularly passing out recreational substances to members of Wings. She was well known for that. She was very hospitable with doing that through various phases of the Wings career. She didn't like pornography. She didn't like seeing groupies in the hallways. but you could have as much drugs as you want. That was no problem.
Counterculture. Yeah. Well, I no idea. Didn't she says at one point we had to decide whose it was, didn't we? And
Yes.
it was I stay at home and look after the kids, and and he go. So clearly, you're right. Clearly, there was, that there was a bit more to it than just Paul's kind of thing.
Yes.
It's whether it was enough for the whole band or whether it was just enough for. But anyway, clearly there was some thought put into whose it was going to be, wasn't there?
And being the good man that he is, he took the rap.
Yeah, it's
took it.
Well, absolutely. Well, he had to, go and spend 7 nights in a jail. But I don't think this retrospect. I don't think he was ever in that much danger of spending 7 years in prison. No. I don't think the Japanese would have wanted to put an ex-Beatle in prison for 7 years,
Oh, the Queen would have sent over...
The world would have come for him, wouldn't they? Wouldn't it?
The Queen would have sent over an aircraft carrier. It would have been war.
Yeah. I don't think he would have, but still the possibility it could have happened. Like, it's a bit of a risky situation to think of, they could potentially still do it. You know what I mean?
100%, bro.
That was one of the things I took away from the whole documentary was that felt like a bit of self-sabotage, I think.
Yeah, I took away don't take loads of stuff to Japan.
So guys, obviously one of the key things, obviously, from the film too, was the conversation in around the news not long after that bust of Brad. You mentioned it before, one of the greatest songwriting partnerships ever in the world. And right up until the last day of the existence of this world, people will be talking about Lennon and McCartney. So, there was a conversation, and, Paul was talking about, his thoughts around the murder of John Lennon, Brad and Simon. So, Brad, you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously they touched on the fact that John and Paul had, through the mid-70s, I think 74 onwards, they were in communication and they were in good, they'd sort of, caught up for dinners and gone out, especially during John's breakup period with Yoko and stuff like that. I think Paul was probably around a little bit more, but it was pretty evident.
Nice.
And it was pretty evident that, Paul and Linda and the family would catch up with John and Yoko from time to time. That was something that, I wasn't sure how often that sort of thing happened, but it sounded like it was a regular thing. Whenever they were around, they'd always catch up. And, and it was good to hear, that obviously Lennon heard Coming Up. Was it Coming Up? McCartney's song Coming Up.
Yeah.
That re-inspired him. Yeah, that re-inspired him to, he thought that was a great song and re-inspired him to want to write music. And I guess they had a healthy rivalry with songwriting throughout the Beatles, and it continued on, I mean, the first part, the song off Ram, Too Many People, there was a few little shots in there potentially at John, and John took it very personally, and John wrote, How Do You Sleep? And, I guess through recognition and rekindling and bearing all the business side of things with Paul, he came out, John, and said, I wanted to, I was angry.
Can I just interrupt you there, bro?
Sure.
So Paul talks about that, and he doesn't take any offense to that when, because he mentions that. He said, if you knew Paul like I did, if you knew John like I did, that's exactly what you would expect Paul. That's exactly what you would expect John Lennon to say.
Yeah, and I guess that being said, they were very close. They obviously throughout the 70s are very close. That little incident where they were watching Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
where they could have potentially gone and performed the two of them for $3,000. I thought that was a laugh when they were getting offered hundreds of millions of dollars to rejoin the Beatles again.
Walk down to the studio now. Let's walk down to the studio and go live.
Yeah. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, they didn't feel comfortable with that, and fair enough. I mean, who knows what the future would have held if John hadn't have been shot. But I will go back to what your original thing was, Andrew, about, where they sort of talked to Paul after the day of that he got shot. And you can see Paul's in shock. He's not really ready to talk to the press. And, I thought that was a bit unfair of the press to hammer Paul in that situation, and he just wanted to get away from it. You can tell he's very uncomfortable being questioned, and I guess his answer, where I always used to get a little bit upset at Paul for that, where he said, "Oh, it's a real drag, isn't it?" and walks off. But obviously, when you look at the whole context of footage there, like you can see he's not comfortable with being questioned about it straight away. He's just lost potentially one of his longest standing friends that believed in him. You know what I mean?
Someone just heard the news. He just heard the news.
Literally just heard, and it was a bit of a sad time for Paul. And I could just imagine. I mean, you hear his daughter, Paul's daughter, talking, narrating while they're showing some footage of, where they were staying at the time, at the farm and that, where Paul found out that, he passed away, and he literally walked out the door and he was a broken man. He wasn't, there wasn't, I can imagine that would be the worst thing possible to think of, someone that you, like a brother. They were not blood brothers, but they were closer than brothers, and they've been assassinated. I mean, think about that. I mean, God forbid any of us ever have to go through that. You know what I mean? That's different to someone taking their life, different to someone dying naturally or through illness or whatever. They got assassinated outside their home. So you can understand why Paul immediately cancelled any plans of touring because of security reasons and stuff like that. But I found that whole period would break any man, I think, that'd been through what Paul had been through. So, yeah, my heart bled for him at that point when I watched that on the show, on the documentary. I thought that was very sad, for all of the...
I'll tell you, Brad, what was extraordinary about that to me was somehow he's out on his own, no PR, nobody, and just with a bunch of reporters who are asking him questions. I find it's like it wouldn't happen now. There'd be a press statement, there would be, pleased for privacy or whatever. But yet he's, as you say, clearly shocked and, horrified by the whole thing, trying to hold it together. But he's just surrounded by these reporters on the street. It's just weird. There was absolutely no protection for him. No, nobody helping him PR-wise or anything like that, sort of fending the press off or whatever. He was just out there. It was amazing.
It was a strange situation, I think. But yeah, my heart broke for him at that point in time because, maybe down the track, who knows, maybe Paul and John might have started writing together and included Ringo and George. You don't know, especially around the time, they did the anthology thing. That could have potentially been a Beatles reunion if it you don't know. We don't know what the history would have, what the future would have held for us if John wasn't killed. But I found that part of it was that was all good to watch because I felt really sorry for Paul there.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. It was, as I say, quite terrifying, really. And although, he's got to. I mean, clearly, work for him as a therapy.
Yeah.
You know, I noticed that, you know, that almost straight away from the breakup of the Beatles, he goes off to Scotland, records an album. Straight away after, you know, getting released from the Japanese jail, the next week he's in London listening to you know, McCartney 2 tapes.
Yeah.
You know, mixing them, and it's clearly work is for him a therapy, and you know, enabling him to, you know, and I think that's what he's like in a sense. You know, he likes to work and he likes to do things, keep things rolling, and the you know, I think the documentary, that's the arc of the narrative of the documentary, isn't it? Make albums, do tours, find musicians, you know, and find a way of intermingling them with your domestic life,
Yeah.
you know, and being married with small children and dealing with that really. And, you know, and I think it's, you know, in there's a lot of smart moves, aren't there? Like going to Scotland, you know, where it's, you know, you're down the track somewhere, millions of people are not turning up because it's a long way away, difficult to get to in the early 70s. So, you know, it's a piece of, you know, the isolation, you know, and he clearly never stopped making music, but the isolation enabled him to sort of, you know, recover, reset, and pull himself, you know, out of it, really, out of the sort of mire, and keep, you know, saying, I am a creative person, I can still do this, and getting on with it and doing it. And I think that's probably a lesson for a lot of us. Get on with it and do it and stop messing about.
Well, it kind of inspired me a lot too, you know, and that's what it should do to every musician, but also people that are involved in creating things, whether it be art or anything that you create. It's like, you know, someone like Paul McCartney was a workaholic in our eyes, but what did he call it? It wasn't a workaholic. It was a songaholic or so. I can't remember how he. I didn't like that.
Puts it either. No.
Yeah, but he mentioned that. He goes, people said I'm a workaholic, but I'm not. I'm a songaholic or so. I forgot what he said there. Maybe someone in the chat could enlighten us again. But yeah, it was a very good overview of, you know, a genius regrouping. I mean, I laughed at the idea of him, you know, putting together a band and then went and toured, and they didn't have gigs, and they go to universities and just say, we're going to come play. Would you like Paul McCartney to play? I thought that was a little uncomfortable at the time to watch when I was watching it, but then I thought about it today and I thought, well, I guess at the end of the day, he wanted to strip back and you know, because if people knew who he was, he could probably just rock up somewhere and go, we want to play. We're going to play here.
But didn't you think it was funny that they'd go into university and then somebody would have to come out and look in the bus to see if it was him first? They go, all right, you come, all right, Paul McCartney in the bus. Really?
I found those sort of things a little uncomfortable. I thought they were like, you know, we got on a bus and the kids are sleeping on a mattress and this and that. I was thinking, but that's one thing too that, you know, I giving credit for him and Linda took the kids on the road, and they didn't just leave them with people. They actually endured all that as well as kids. So that's why I like when, you know, Paul's family, his kids now, are so close to him, I think, because he took them everywhere. He took them, you know, on tour. He took them on the road when they were babies. He took them everywhere. So,
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well,
I thought that was pretty cool. Go on, Andrew.
Yeah, to continue that, you know, that theme of, you know, touring on the universities, you know, there was clearly satisfaction on Paul McCartney's part when he was talking about how successful Wings were, and I think people need to remember that. You know, there's an interesting footage of 3 or 4 semi-trailers, Wings over America, recording, you know, which went to record one of the greatest live albums that we've not spoken about on this channel yet, that we'll do one day. Wings Across America, a great album. And Paul was proud of the fact that that band made that impact by itself. Obviously, albeit because he was an ex-Beatle, of course. But that was a pretty hot band that recorded this, to the point where Paul talks about it towards the end. That was the best band. That was the best Wings band.
Sorry, guys.
What was that? That was fine. What was it? Sounded great.
Something opened up on my computer by accident.
Great.
Yeah, I agree with you, Hugh. Yeah, it's a great album.
Now, and I agree. We should probably do that.
Band.
That would be an album you'd have to do over 2 episodes, Andrew. So.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. The video's incredible. Go and check the video out, and I suppose I want to get back to the point that I made earlier with my opening. I'm a fan of Jimmy McCulloch. I think what Jimmy McCulloch did, and it's a tragedy if you don't know what happened to Jimmy McCulloch. Go and do some research, folks. One of the greatest British guitar players. We talk about Clapton, we talk about Peter Green and Mick Taylor's, Jeff Beck. Jimmy McCulloch's in there too, and his contribution to that video, he's pretty cool. Just this young guy, Brad, this young skinny guy with the SG.
Yeah. See, Gibson but I take it they were good bands, those, weren't they? The sort of the live footage of with the horn section, doing silly love songs and stuff. Well, they turn it as kind of 70s sort of disco sort of extravaganza, didn't it? It's really good. Yeah, fantastic thing.
Yeah.
As it's me, I love the things about Henry McCulloch being replaced by Jimmy McCulloch, different spelling, not related, and Jeff Britton being replaced by Joe English. All those funny names, not
yeah.
That's
there's like a little coincidence.
Yeah, it's kind of mad. Yeah. Made me laugh a lot. That did. It's like how do you manage that? So.
No, Ginger Baker wasn't mentioned at all.
No. Was that his studio? Was it Ginger Baker's? Blimey. Where he was?
No mention of Ginger Baker at all. Nothing. Yeah.
No, very little mention of musicians outside of the key band members.
Yeah.
Really?
But he didn't really delve into the other, like as Andrew said, the other key members that much either.
Well, Denny Lane didn't really dig into Denny Lane at all. One thing that I did note that sort of annoyed me in a way is that all of the commentary was done by everyone was off camera. I quite like to see people who are talking rather than just I recognise most of the people's voices, but I think it would have been nice to see them talking rather than just hear their voices. I don't know. That's just what I felt about it. I felt that they could have been on camera, not off camera, really.
Yeah, I think that would have been good. But I guess they were trying to make it all fit within the format of nearly just under 2 hours. I think it went. So the other thing that I've written down, probably the last thing I've got to mention is Elton John talks about each of the Beatles releasing their first album and mentions that George Harrison's first album was okay, and I was like, well, no, that's not actually correct. It's a masterpiece, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to say sometimes one person's opinion isn't always the same as someone else's. Everyone's got, we've done a show on All Things Must Pass.
Thank you for making that point, because I actually thought that was disrespectful.
Yeah, I did too, and I just wanted to mention that in this because as far as I'm concerned, I think it was like a floodgate for George Harrison, that album of backlog of stuff that he probably was. I mean, we know in the Get Back sessions they were working on All Things Must Pass and all those sort of things, probably a backlog of stuff that George had, and we know he had. Which
just go and look at all the songs. Go and look at all the songs on that album and the house band.
Yeah,
that house band he had.
It actually made me go and listen to "I'd Have You Anytime" just before I came on here. I just, from George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, the first track, I just love that. I'm just like, well, that's his first introduction to, the world as a solo artist. And I was quite surprised there wasn't a lot more talk about George Harrison and Ringo. There was a tiny bit of Ringo in there and a tiny bit of George, but I guess at the end of the day, it was Paul talking about his successes with post-Beatle. And it's good.
Brad, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy that there was bugger all Beatles talk, to be fair, because, we've got plenty of that. You know what I mean? I'm happy that he focused on Wings. In fact, if there is a criticism, I wish there would have been just more Simon.
No, I think that's right. I think they touched on the important stuff around, the Beatles, like the breakup, and the fact that as early as 73, John and Paul had made up and were in communication. And as you said earlier, Andrew, the sort of song sniping had sort of stopped really, and Paul didn't put that much credence against John for having win. Was that very interesting about one of the lines was a suggestion of the manager, what's he called?
Alan Klein.
Alan Klein.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Stirring it up. But that clearly, 2 years later, that clearly dissipated, and Paul,
and Paul goes, "I was right."
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was really interesting about Alan Klein, who clearly, it'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to get the Stones' view of Alan Klein and the Beatles' view of Alan Klein and see whether they lined up or not.
I can tell you what the Stones think of Alan Klein, and we can't mention any of those words.
Really, what can we say? Not good.
No.
Can we say they concurred with the Beatles eventually?
Correct.
Yeah.
I did like how Paul touched on the fact that he had to sue down the Beatles and that sort of stuff.
To get out. Yeah.
To get out of the contract. Yeah. And that's how that works. Yeah. To get out of a contract, you got to sue. So, and he, actually, that's a good point, Brad. And he spoke about how these were my mates.
Yeah.
But I had to do that because we're talking about millions of dollars here, Brad.
Yes.
100%. We're not talking about a couple of beers, bro.
No. 100%.
Which is what they got later. I love the idea that they got bags of 50p's, don't they? It's a contrast to all of that. When they were doing the tour, they got bags of 50p's that they could share out real cash money.
That's right, because he makes a point of that. The first time in my life I've actually saw cash.
Cash money. What's that?
What's that? Clapton says the same thing too, doesn't he? Not long after he goes, what's money?
I got 50 quid. I'm off. Hey.
No, I've got a question for you, gents, because we've touched on quite a few things here. I know we don't normally do this, but I thought to myself, just unprepared, what would you give it a ranking out of 10, the documentary, Andrew?
What will I adore anything with Paul McCartney? So, Matt, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And I think that's good. And I just have some criticisms. But obviously a lot of people will say they're petty criticisms, but not 9 out of 10. And I think for anybody that wanted to get an appreciation of what Wings was as a band, as opposed to the Beatles, Simon. I think that's a pretty good presentation, Simon.
Yeah, I do as well, and I think that build up when they go Wings Over America tour, and and there's the screaming, there's like reminiscent of Beatlemania going on still. So 10 years later, there's that reminiscence of Beatlemania with them, but playing stadium, playing big outdoor venues with 20,000-30,000 people turning up. It's and playing Bannister Square Gardens multiple nights, and clearly shows that he's got it as a musician, and taking it out as I think that as I say, for me, I didn't really learn anything new about Paul McCartney, but I'm you could quite easily convince me there's nothing to learn about Paul McCartney. He is who he is. That's what he does, and it's so you learned that that's who he truly is, and so I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think probably it's got lots of, as I said at the beginning, it's got lots of sort of stuff that I really identified with, like the Scottish things and all that stuff about the 70s. The sort of going around in charabancs and things. I recognised a lot of that from my teenage years. So 8 out of 10 from me.
Brad,
and I think it does a good job of redressing the balance with with Wings. Brad,
thank you.
Yeah, I agree with both you guys. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought there's a couple of things. I didn't really learn anything anything new. There's a couple of different perspectives though that I appreciate that. And it's all, like I said at the opening, it's always good to hear from the actual artist, like what their perspective on that time frame and period was. Because historically, sometimes people are inaccurate with their information. So it's good to hear from a different perspective, like actually Paul's. And but I gave it a 9 out of 10. Not many criticisms. I found a few things, like I said, a bit awkward to watch, only because you're talking about, the Paul from this album.
Yeah.
And then moving on, there was a couple of things I was like, oh, that's a bit harsh, or that's like, that's. But then it's like Paul evolving, moving on. I could put myself in his shoes at that particular time, and go, well, what would you do after, the Beatles disbanding and breaking up? Where do you go from there? How can you possibly even try and better that, or even try and compete with that? You can't. So the point was to just move on, and I liked that. He just moved on. And in retrospect, though, listening to those albums, McCartney and Ram and whatnot, I've got a newfound appreciation for them, Andrew.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, folks, for joining us for these little get-together videos that we do here on the channel. We do like them, and we mention a few times through the course of the year that we'll get together and give reviews on significant films that have come out, and documentaries that are sort of, linked to the subject matter that we've done. And I like that. I personally like the fact that we can get together for an hour and a half, guys, and do that. It just adds a little bit of flavor to what we do here on the channel. But we're back to work next week. Next week's going to be an interesting show, because we're on a mission from God, if you guys aren't aware. And Brad, what's the mission from God that we've been given?
You're putting me on the spot, Andrew, aren't you?
To rank every
single Eric Clapton album before the end, ending with Old Sock. That's the rule.
Yes. Well, I did know that, but I thought we were alluding to something else, because for some reason I thought next weekend we're doing something else. But we're doing which one, Andrew?
We're doing this, aren't we?
Doing that album there. Sorry. Look, I pressed the wrong button. We're doing Just One Night. So a great live album that came out 78, 79, 80, around that era. There's 14 songs on there. We reckon we're going to do it within 2 hours. Because it's a live album, there's not a lot really in as far as analysis we're going to give on the tracks. Maybe we'll just talk about the track and just give our ranking. But, it's an important album in Clapton's back catalogue. And between me, you, and the Gatepost guys, I think it's a fine sort of end post or end mark or bookmark, Simon, from the 70s moving on to the 80s.
Yeah. And I think this is the first time I saw Eric was on certainly
that tour.
I think it was the one after it, because it still had Chris Stainton and Albert Lee, but I think it had Gary Brooker. The one I saw had Gary Brooker on it. So I think it's the one after this, but very much in this vein, still in this vein. So I've always loved this album. See, I got it on vinyl.
Fantastic.
I've always thought, really.
John's going to go and listen to Wings Over America too. Good on you, mate. It's a great album. It's on the list.
They're all on the list. You see, the list just keeps growing.
Yes.
And Helene, we've ranked Band on the Run, but we haven't done Speed of Sound. That's on the list too.
There's so many missions from God that we've got to do and achieve.
Jeez, got to stay alive for a lot of years to do this.
So we were a bit of, just to let folks know, we're having a bit of a chat in our group chat that we've got set up, and Jim, who's here in the chat, mentioned the last time we were on together, we were talking about Clapton albums, etc. And another key component to who and why this channel exists, we make no bones about that, guys, do we? It's just but that's something that we set ourselves the goal of doing, that we'll do every Clapton album, and then Jim said something like, isn't that something like in the Blues Brothers, Brad, where they're on a mission from God?
From God, yes.
Yeah. Every time you say it, Andrew, I think of the Blues Brothers movie. That's why I was like, what mission from God are we at?
We're on a mission from God.
Our mission from God is to do
well, personally, I'm on about 20 missions from God. So,
well, we all are.
Only.
Yes.
I haven't been successful on a lot of them, actually, this Lent of, we're in the third week of Lent, so I'm not very successful. So I'll share that with you guys. My Lenten practice hasn't been very good.
Failed to give up butter. That's what my dad would give up butter for Lent. And if you knew my dad, that was more of a hardship than it sounds.
Oh, John wants to see me do backflips in our church. Mate, you no problem.
Really?
I love that. I love that scene in the Blues Brothers movie.
It's incredible.
Fantastic, yeah.
And as a Catholic, it's a great Catholic film. Go and check it out. It's a great film. It's not anti-Catholic. Some people mistakenly think it is, and I think if you think that it is,
really.
Anyway, that's another subject.
Oh, anyway, sorry. Yes. God, I never thought the Blues Brothers would be like that at all.
Clapton is
Clearly
always
not
relevant
reading it right.
When talking about the blues. Absolutely. So look, there's been some great comments from folks. Helene is right. We have promised that NXS's Kick. That's on the list. One of the great albums from 86? 86 that came out, 86, 87?
Something like that. Yeah.
87, 88, around there. 87, I think. Yeah. 86, 87, I think. Yeah, somewhere there.
That's when NXS took over the world, Brad.
Yeah, that's their peak. They were phenomenal, incredible.
Thank you.
Let's have a look.
Drang Doggin 5968.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, guys. Well, that pretty much wraps up our little brief review or analysis of the documentary, doesn't it? Man on the Run.
Yeah, sure does. God bless Paul McCartney. We'll be back next week.
Yep.
I'll do a show card for the Clapton album.
Yep.
What is it? One more night.
One more night.
Yeah, just one night. Just one night.
Not 24 nights.
No,
just one night.
Just one night, not 24. Actually, you should do a little joke between us three and Michael. Say, don't need 24 nights, just one night.
Oh, yeah. Hey, yeah. Why would you need 24 nights when you could just be with?
Just have one.
I can't say that. I can't say that.
We're talking about our friend Michael also. If anyone,
yeah,
Michael.
But you guys know where I'm going.
Where 24 is more than one, and therefore it's better. That's the math.
Hey,
24 times better. See, you get.
Well, I'm greedy. I'm greedy, so I'll always take 24 nights then.
Rock music maths. 24 is better than one because it is.
All right, Rock Professor.
All right, you better say goodbye to the fine folks.
Goodbye, fine folks. See ya. Goodbye to Helene. Thank you for the super chat, Helene. Hugh Caldwell, thanks you as well. Django Dunn. Thanks, Django. That's the first new name to me. So thanks for joining and making a comment. John ZD351. Another connection for this film. You will hear no lies on this film. Just bullshit. On this show. That's unbelievable. Arvin, of course. Arvin, great to see you. Hugh, John, Ellen, Toll. Ellen, lovely to see you. I hope you're well. And take care. We'll see you next week. With Just Under 50. Jim, hope you like my cassette, Jim. That's Tony Bowen as well. Who particularly said, Brad, that he said he watched the Elvis thing that you recommended. It was fantastic. So,
yeah.
No,
I highly recommend anyone go and see it while it's at the cinemas. Go and see it.
Yeah, it is really good. Yeah, Hugh, Alan, Hugh, John. Who else we had? Tony, me, Gretch Zeppelin as well. Gretch, thank you for your super chat too. That's very kind. Yeah, I think there was somebody else at the top. Helene. Yeah, Zaboy Zach. That's a great name. So thank you for making a comment, Zaboy. Great to see you too. I hope I got everybody. Thanks everyone for joining in. Lots of fun as ever. Lots of great stuff. And we'll see you next week for more of this nonsense. Take it away, boss.